to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And what a disappointing Tuesday night for the Philadelphia Union as they lose back-to-back games of this season after going 7 unbeaten to start the year. First time since 2021 that the Union have lost back-to-back home matches in MLS play. And if you thought Saturday night against Real Salt Lake was bad, I think Tuesday night definitely takes the cake. And it's a game that I'm still honestly trying to wrap my head around. I don't know what it is about this team, and just being in the locker room after the game, something felt off on Saturday. I mean, speaking to Andre, listening to Bedoya speak, he was pretty pissed off. Gaza seemed pretty upset too that, they played that way against Real Salt Lake. And then, you listen to Gaza speak last night in the locker room. He said this is the worst that the team's ever played since he's been here with the Union. Jacob Glesnes wasn't happy with the way that the team played. And I don't know. I mean, Jim Curtin, I get why he didn't seem like he really wanted to talk to the media either. I mean, this team's just not used to losing at home. And to lose back-to-back games, they definitely don't do that. And it's been 3 years. 3 years since they last did that. They did that in April of 2021, I believe it was. I know it was 2021, but I believe it was during the April stretch. Should have had it in my notes, but you're just not a good night. Especially when you look, this is the game that resumed after the initial rain-out game between Philadelphia and Seattle. The game kicked off, I think, in the 5th minute and 28 seconds, and Union had a free kick, and you're like, all right, wouldn't that be something if the Union score off this free kick? And it obviously doesn't happen, and, well, Seattle, they get off with a goal with Raul Ruidiaz in the 13th minute, gets a penalty kick. Obed Vargas scores a goal. Second half, the Union try to come back, score 2 unanswered goals, but giving up 3 goals in the first half, that's just uncharacteristic from this team. And I don't know. I mean, do people start to panic if the Union lose this Saturday down in DC? I think it's possible. I mean, yes, Union fans are used to watching the Union dominate down in DC the last couple seasons, dominate DC United in general, but this is a completely different DC United side. They win over the weekend against Seattle 2-1. Seattle had a red card in that match, the goalkeeper, Stephen Fry. But DC currently sitting in 8th place, 3 wins, 3 losses, 4 draws. And I think, Saturday's game is going to be very telling. I mean, you thought that this team would have a different reaction on Tuesday night against Seattle, and it doesn't happen. They don't have that fiery reaction like, all right, there's no reason why we should have lost to RSL. And they come out and give up 3 goals in the first half, and all you can do at that point is just laugh. It's all you can do at that point is laugh. It just wasn't a good night overall. And I guess let's start with the lineup. And so you had Andre Blake, who initially started in this game, but he was unable to go because he suffered a knee injury against Real Salt Lake. So Andre got his knee drained, and they didn't feel like it was worth the risk to start Andre against Seattle. So Oliver Zemla came in and replaced him. That means that Andrew Rick had to get his 4th call up, meaning he can't be called up anymore without getting a homegrown contract. So that's going to be interesting to see when the Union give out Andrew Rick his homegrown deal. We know Holden Trent's dealing with that finger injury. And so, I don't know, the Union have a goalkeeper issue, and it's going to be interesting to see, how exactly they juggle this roster and how long Andre could potentially be out for. Jim said, they're hopeful that he plays Saturday against DC, but nothing is guaranteed. So Andre Blake wasn't able to start this game against Seattle for the second time. You had Damian Lowe, who initially started this game. He got replaced by Jacob Glesnes because he's suffering an ankle injury. He tried to give it a go Monday in training, and he had to pull himself out, wasn't able to carry on. So Damian Lowe gets replaced in the lineup. Marcus Anderson initially started this game, gets replaced by Julian Carranza. Marcus Anderson out 3 to 4 weeks with a quad injury. And yeah, no Tai Baribo, and we'll get to that in a second. He was initially on the bench, but they had to get Julian Carranza on the bench, and so Tai Baribo was the odd man out because Julian was initially injured for this game, wasn't on the bench, and then they were able to bring Julian on because they had loaned out Matt Real, and then I believe the way that it worked was they put Tai Baribo in as the starter for Marcus Anderson, and then Julian Carranza replaced Tai Baribo because they had to waste a substitution since Carranza wasn't originally on the lineup. I know, super confusing. But there's where your changes you saw for the Union. And we look at the goals that the Union conceded. Wasn't a great showing by Jose Martinez, who tweeted at halftime, and we'll talk about him and Andre Blake's Instagram post that he posted Tuesday morning. I mean, I say it all the time, and maybe you guys get tired of me saying it, but you look at when you're building a team, you want to have the spine of the team taken care of first. That includes a defensive midfielder, your 2 center backs, and your goalkeeper. And when you look at this Union team over the years, where have they been strong? It's been the spine. Defensively, they've been so strong defensively, and that's not been the case this season. They've conceded 14 goals already, 17 goals for, 4 goals against. It's just way too many goals that the Union are conceding right now, and we can get into that here in a little bit. But it starts with your spine, and when you have so many changes defensively, and that's going to play an impact, in my opinion. I know Andre Blake says he doesn't believe that makes an impact. He said that last game against Real Salt Lake, but I do. You want to have stability in that spine. And that's something that the Union haven't had this season. And I get it, right? Jim Curtin says, we can't run guys into the ground, namely Jacob Glesnes. We saw what happened last season. And I agree with him. That's why it's important to rotate, keep guys fresh. But at the same time, you don't really want to be messing with that spine. I mean, you want it to be consistent with Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott. You want it to be consistent with Jose Martinez. And I know it's unfortunate with the injuries that Andre Blake's had, but like that's the one area I feel like you don't want to mess with too much. And they should have last year. I know how I sound right now because, they played Jacob Glesnes into the ground, and he should have got more breaks last season. But I do think part of the reason the Union are conceding 14 goals so far through 9 games is because they don't have that stability in their back line. And I can't fault Oliver Zemla for the first goal that they gave up. Raul Ruidiaz scored from 45, 50 yards maybe. And it starts with the giveaway by Jose Martinez. It's inexcusable. It's absolutely inexcusable. And by the way, so after the Union had that free kick, Seattle had a 5-on-1 opportunity after there was a giveaway off of a corner kick. Seattle cleared it away, and then they break on a 5v1. And how they messed that up in the 10th minute, I'm not quite sure. Fortunately, they did mess it up. But that really should have been telling how this game was going to go. And then you wait until the 13th minute. Jose Martinez, bad trap, loses the ball, stops running for it. Oliver Zemla pushed way out of his net. And you don't fault him because that's typically what goalkeepers do when their team's in possession of the ball in the other team's half. And because Jose Martinez loses the ball, Raul Ruidiaz is able to pounce on it, and he's able to just chip this past Oliver Zemla, and there's nothing he can do. I mean, just what a joke of a goal. And it kind of gives you flashbacks to that goal that David Villa scored against the Union with New York City years ago. Not a fond memory to remember. And the Union have conceded some weird goals this season with the own goals, and of course you have that Jacob Glesnes own goal down in Saprissa. That's the one I'm talking about. Or even if you look at it in preseason, I think it was against Cincinnati. The Union posted the video, or maybe Cincinnati posted the video. Jacob Glesnes had a weak header back to Andre Blake, and then it was against Cincinnati, and then Bupenza just backheels it into the goal, and it's like, seriously, dude, like, you're showboating like that in a preseason game. And so it's just been weird this season, the way that the Union are conceding goals. The second goal that Seattle scores comes by a bad touch by Jose Martinez once again. And okay, you would say, okay, let's just put the blame on Jose Martinez here. But no, I mean, the Union had enough guys back defensively where they could have covered this. But Olivier Bizot absolutely gets cooked. Just gives up way too much space on Vargas. And it's a fantastic strike. Nothing that Oliver Zemla could have done on that. Got to give credit where credit's due, but Olivier Bizot did not look good on this goal whatsoever. I mean, it's just a simple move by Vargas. Collects the ball on his left and then cuts inside right. It's a joke. Bizot just gets caught napping for a few seconds. And then the third goal, he gets off the penalty kick. And he's complaining, that's not a penalty. Like, dude, you completely took him outside the box. That's 100% a penalty. And just watching how Olivier Bizot played on the night, this was one of his worst games. And yes, I'm still bitter for the way that he played against LAFC in the MLS Cup. He gave up the game-tying goal. Him and Paxton Aronson should have fouled on the sideline. Should have fouled. No way you allowed the throw-in guy to collect the ball. Still bitter about that. Then he, of course, has that moment against New York City in the Eastern Conference Finals at home, the COVID year in 2021. Talles Magno, I believe, is who got the better of him. And of course, like, you always remember plays like that, the bad memories, more than you remember the good, because it's plays that led to you losing games. Of course you remember them. But Olivier Bizot is just so inconsistent. Jim Curtin says that all the time. I'm not saying anything different. Like, Jim Curtin has said it multiple times. You know, occasionally he'll give you the 8 out of 10 performance, 9 out of 10 performance, but it's a lot of 4 and 5s. And if you guys don't know what that means, FootMob is one of the many stats websites. And so you get a grading out of 1 out of 10. And I would say anywhere between 6, 6.5 is pretty average. It means you had a decent game. Anything above that, it's good. Obviously, anything below, you had a really bad game. And I don't always agree with the ratings. Olivier Bizot in this game had a 5.1. I definitely agree with that. But he has too many 3, 4, and 5s. He's just way too inconsistent. And you saw there was a moment there where he was getting caught up occasionally with the Cameroonian national team. Wasn't playing much, but he's so far removed from the national team, it's not funny. And it's kind of laughable too, where you look defensively, Cameroon's not good. They need defenders. And Jim always makes the comparison that, Olivier, if he can give those 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 performances week in, week out, he'd be playing in Ligue 1 in France. That league suits him with his attacking qualities. And that's exactly what he is. He's attack first. And I'm getting a little flustered, obviously, talking about Bizot, and it's no secret that he's not my favorite player. I think you guys know how I feel about him. Yes, he had a good game against Nashville and the Union's comeback victory down there. Good movements offensively. But defensively, he's not good. His brain or whatever just clicks off for 5 seconds, and that's all you need as an attacker, for a defender just to space out for 5 seconds. And if that happens, you've already got the better of them. And it happens constantly with Olivier Bizot. And now I think, is it fair to say, should the Union be looking for another right back? I mean, how confident do you guys feel when Nate Harriel goes away with the U.S. for the Olympics? You're going to have Olivier Bizo. That's it. That's your only right back. Do you guys feel confident with him playing? I don't. And I know Berdesio was signed and he can play as a right back, but he's not even close to playing with the first team. He struggles with Union too. A lot of mental errors down there with them. And so now you get into the point where, do the Union in the summertime need to bring in a right back? Because you cannot trust Olivier Bizo anymore. I've personally seen enough. And I don't know how this coaching staff feels. I mean, I know Jim Curtin's loyal to his guys. And I'm sure once the Olympics come around in the summertime that Bizo is going to get the starts. He's going to be given opportunities. But I do wonder. I do wonder, is this on their mind now? That, hey, look, I know we don't really have the roster space. We have to move parts around. We got to potentially cut players, sell players if we want to bring players in. But I don't know, man. I don't know. He's too much of a liability. And yes, you get Quinn Sullivan tracking back, playing defense. That's great. But when Quinn's put in 2v1 situations, it's nothing he can do there. Bizo can't defend 1v1. He proved it on the second goal that he gave up. Defending on the third goal, giving up the penalty. Proved it. It's just a reckless tackle. And I don't know. I don't really see people too much complaining about him on social media. And I know social media is not the judgment and it's not the representation of the whole fan base. But even walking around the stadium, I don't really hear people bashing Olivier Bizo. I hear more people bashing Leon Flock than I do Olivier Bizo. It's why? I get that Leon doesn't give you the offense that you want, but he gives you defensive stability. And that's exactly what this team needs right now. Leaking 14 goals in 9 games. They need players that can play defense. Jose Martinez, not a great night. Not a great night, and makes matters worse with his social media posts. And sure, we'll talk about that later. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speculate what exactly he means because I think not a lot of people really do understand what he means. But yeah, what a horrible night. And so we have a whole bunch of clips to drum up, and I think I have 5 this episode. It's a lot, but you guys appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I have really no other thoughts to say, overall thoughts, without getting into different talking points. And I don't know. I didn't even feel like talking about the goal. I guess we can talk about the goals the Union scored. Daniel Gazdag, congrats to him. The all-time leading goal scorer now for the Union in all competitions with 57. Beautiful header. Beautiful header that he scored. Had a second goal in this game, ruled off for offsides. But it's a lot of good stuff from Daniel Gazdag the last couple games here. I think personally, this is probably the best that we've seen from Daniel Gazdag. 5 goals in his last 6 games. I think he's just in terrific form. And hopefully that continues. The Union are going to need it down in DC. That is 100% a fact. But just looking at the fight for this team, I mean, that's the one thing you can say, right? You give up 3 goals in the first half, and then you come back and score 2 goals, basically back-to-back in the second half, and you're like, all right, game on in the 55th and then the 57th minute. Union then weren't able to get the game-tying goal. And it is what it is, right? I mean, it's kind of the same thing we saw against Real Salt Lake, right? First half was horrible for the Union. And then in the second half, they turned it around, and Jim Curtin said after the game against Real Salt Lake, that was more us. But now this team has to figure out how they can turn the second half performances into first half performances. And I won't harp on it too much, but yes, of course, the Union conceded first yet again. 6 goals in 9 games now that they've conceded first in MLS play. It's not good enough. It's inexcusable. And Jim Curtin talked about that after the game.
We let ourselves down with that performance. I said at halftime, I can live with mistakes. The mistakes on the first goal, a mistake on a penalty kick. I can live with mistakes, but I can't live with being outcompeted. And that was the case. It's a Seattle team that was desperate for points, that has a lot of experience and a lot of great players, and we didn't match their intensity for the first half. You challenge the guys to try to get the first goal in the second half, and I think they showed a strong response and did some good things, but it was a little bit short on the night. When you put yourself behind by that many goals in our building, which should never happen, it makes it very difficult. And the getting behind can become a habit, and it's not a habit that I want to have with this group. Again, they show a ton of character and heart, but it's very emotionally draining, physically draining to chase a game from behind. So we need to play with leads. We need to find a way to score first and not concede what anyone who's watched soccer would say are silly goals, really silly goals, and we have to clean that up.
But that's the thing. It is becoming a habit. And we saw it in 2021, I think it was. I know Kyle Almany will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Union were conceding goals first in 2021, especially in the first 15 minutes of games. But as far as I'm concerned, 6 goals now conceded first in the first 9 games. Yes, it is a habit. And they've got to break it. They've got to break this trend. And Jim's right. They were silly goals that they gave up. You give up on a play, a bad touch. You give up a penalty, just a careless mistake, carelessly defending. On the second goal, you let the guy cut in from his left, one to his right. Keep the guy in front of you. If he wants to be on his weaker foot, then keep him out there. Don't let him cut in on his strong foot. It's simple stuff. And they're silly mistakes. And those mistakes are what makes you so angry. And I'll throw a whole bunch of stats at you guys, which I know some of you guys love, some of you guys hate. But the Union conceded 2 goals at home 3 times last season. Doesn't happen often, and they've already done it twice so far this season. They did it against Chicago in the home opener, and now they've done it against Seattle. Union, fortunately, are able to come back against Chicago. Tie 3-3. Fall short in coming back against Seattle. Last year, they did it against Atlanta United in a 3-2 win. They did it against FC Cincinnati in a 2-2 draw. Union scored first in that game, by the way. Orlando City beat them 2-1. That was during an international break. Orlando City scored the first 2 goals within the first 20 minutes of the game. Andres Pereira scores the Union's lone goal in that game. The last time that the Union conceded the first 3 goals, I wasn't expecting 3 goals given up in the first half. You got to go all the way back to 2016. The last time that the Union conceded 3 goals in the first half at home. And a 3-1 loss to Toronto FC. Josie Altidore, Javinko were both on the score sheet that day for Toronto. 2016. We're talking 8 years ago. It just doesn't typically happen. And especially with this current group of players. They don't concede that many goals ever at Subaru Park. I know last year they conceded the first 2 goals at home. International break, you're not dealing with your full strength roster, blah, blah, blah. Joe Bendix in goal, I get it. You go to Subaru Park and you're used to the Union blowing out teams. You're not used to the Union conceding first. You're not used to the Union losing. They've lost the last 2 games. These are the games you've got to be winning at home. You want to be a serious playoff team, you've got to win at home. Especially, again, I'm going to repeat myself a lot. With so many summer competitions, international competitions, you've got to take care of business at home. And you lose your game in hand against Seattle. Now you have one more game in hand. What are you going to do with it? We'll see. I don't have confidence that this team is going to take care of DC United. We're really going to learn a lot about this team this Saturday against DC. Are they going to roll up their sleeves like Jacob Glesnes said they should and put on a good performance that you guys, the fans, are deserving of? From what I've been told, It's a sold-out supporter section down in D.C. this weekend. No excuses for, a bad performance. The fans are traveling. They believe in this team. And so hopefully the team gives them the performance that these fans are deserving of. 2019, was the last time that the Union gave up 3 unanswered goals in general. And a 3-1 loss to Toronto as well. Marco Fabian scored the penalty kick late in the second half, I believe it was. Fun fact, my first ever in-person Union game. What a cold night. Or cold evening, I believe it was. Afternoon? I don't know, I forget. Yeah, I think it was an afternoon game. But just not good. Conceding first, conceding multiple goals at home, losing back-to-back games at home. It's not good enough. Like I said, 14 goals conceded in 9 games. It's not good enough defensively. And this is what Jacob Glesnes had to say was wrong, in his opinion, with the defense.
Yeah, we have been more sloppy than what we have been like lately, like the other years. Like what are making us good is our defensively shape. Not that we are like a tiki-taka soccer team or whatever. What have making us good the last couple of years is that we have been taking the defense first. Maybe some games we have played 0-0 and win with 1. And then in the end of the year, when we have built confidence, we have been winning some games with bigger numbers, and that's what people has remember now, and thinking that we should win every game like with high numbers, and that's not us. We have to do the shit job first, and then we have to figure it out and go back to the basic, because we know when we are hard to play against, then we get our chances offensively. We're getting the spaces right, and we have counter space to counter attack in, and then we have players that can do really good, and that's what we are talking about a lot, because when we are playing with a lead, the teams have to come at us, and then we have the spaces that we needed to counterattack. When we have to chase the teams, then they can lay back, and that's not when we have our best qualities. But again, we started the second half today good. We was trying hard to get a result back, but it's too late when you're down 3-0 at home.
Yeah, when you're down 3-0, it's pretty much it. Credit to the Union for fighting back in the second half, getting 2 unanswered goals. But how many times have I said it on this podcast that there is a spacing issue with the defense? There's a spacing issue with the center backs and the defensive midfielder. I don't claim to be a genius or anything. And I feel like I know just enough to get me by, just enough to not sound like an idiot. But if somebody like me can see that there's an issue spacing-wise, then why isn't it being corrected? How do you correct it? I don't know. I'm not a coach. It's the reason I'm not a coach. I can see the issue. I don't know how to correct the issue. One way I guess you can say you can correct it is by, playing a low block, parking the bus. But that's not how this team wants to play. That's not how this team sets up. They set up to hit you on the counterattack, to press you. But you continue to concede goals. Then maybe you should change up your tactics. Maybe you should. Because Jacob's right. This team, Jim Curtin says it, this team isn't built from behind. Yes, you've had a couple of results this season where you've got draws, you've got wins from losing positions. But the more and more that the Union concede first, they were very lucky. They were very lucky against Chicago. Very lucky against Sporting Kansas City to get a draw. Only 3 games this season that they've had leading positions. I just wonder what a first goal down in DC conceded is going to do to this team mentally. Are they going to break? Or are we starting to see this team break? It's concerning. It really is concerning. And I think before we talk about the Jose Martinez and Andre Blake tweets and Instagram posts, I'll save that probably towards the end. You get these 2 goals in the 55th and 57th minute. Great. But you know what this team lacks? They lack a true game changer. And we all notice that. We all know it. So at halftime, you bring on Kai Wagner, you bring in Jack McGlynn, you bring on Alejandro Bedoya. That's great. Jack McGlynn, fantastic, gets a goal. Created some chances this game. Bedoya gets an assist. Played well playing as a 6. A lone 6, I should add. But who else is coming off your bench? No offense to Chris Donovan, but he's not that game changer that you think about off the bench. Let's go through this team right now. Marcus Anderson, he's young. but not a game changer. I'm not going to call him a bust. He's not a game changer yet because he's young, doesn't get many opportunities. Tai Baribo. Yeah, I guess we can say he's a bust, and we'll talk about him here in a bit, especially for how much you pay. But when he's only made 5 appearances for you last season in the league, can you really call him a bust? I guess you can, because if he was worth something, then he'd be making appearances, but wasn't on the roster today. Bedoya usually starts on the bench. Okay, I would say Bedoya's a game changer. Jesus Bueno, I think he's one of your good bench options, but he's defensive cover. Chris Donovan, not a game changer. Leon Flock, good defensive player, not an offensive game changer. Damian Lowe, again, good defensive player, not a game changer. Macania, defender, not a game changer. Olivier Bizo has his moments, can be at times, but that prototypical game changer, absolutely not. Sanders Gabo, not a game changer, more of a defensive player. Yeah, I know he was on the bench last night, but really doesn't get any opportunities. You see him more with Union 2 than you ever do with the first team. Nick Pariano, has he made the bench yet this season for the first team? Jeremy Raffanello, not a game changer. Matt Real, when he was here, not a game changer, defensive player. Joaquin Torres, yeah, there's a offensive player, but he's not a game changer. And that's it. Where's the game changers on this team? There is no game changers. When you're down a goal, when you're looking to take a draw into a win, there is no game changers on this team. Bedoya, that's it. But he's not. When you think game changers, at least in my opinion, I think of an attacking 10 or a striker. And they definitely don't have that. They don't have that on the bench. And Jim Curtin was asked after the game, how do you cope? Do you believe you guys have a game changer on the bench?
I take the blame when we lose, and I would say that, the players would say tonight was certainly a unique one. When we're down 3-0, we're scrambling, so we threw 3 subs, we burned 3 subs pretty quickly, obviously, and at half, and now we're sitting on 1 left, the moment to use it. Chris, we didn't want to go too early because then if someone else gets injured, we're done with subs and we have to play shorthanded. So you're finding a way to get them in there to give them at least some minutes to try to make a play. But yeah, look, everybody, if we're all here and healthy and playing in really good form, I still think we have guys that can help change the game off the bench. But when now it gets a little bit thin, you can see it becomes challenging.
As a coach, you have to say that to protect your guys, to instill confidence in them. But you cannot tell me Jim Curtin absolutely believes that he has good players that can change games on the bench. Defensive players, if you're trying to hold on to a lead, sure. But you definitely don't have those attacking players. You don't. You really don't. And we argue this when Corey Burke was with the team. That's the only player you had. When El Senior was here, he's the only one you had. Anthony Fontana had his moments. But this team has not had a game changer over many seasons. And what's it going to take? Honestly, what's it going to take for this team to invest in a game changer? We hear, the rules, the roster rules are going to change. 2 additional U22 spots in the summertime. Do we honestly think the Union are going to invest the money in bringing those type of players? And I see fans, they're starting to get fed up with this team not spending. And those voices start to get louder and louder and louder when the results don't go the way. And I don't know. I don't know what the summer looks like for this team. And you feel sorry for these players that they kind of feel let down by ownership. Where I would, in my opinion, say the Union starting 11 is probably one of the best in all of MLS. Of course, Miami, you'll probably say is the best. Columbus has a really good starting 11. LAFC have a really good starting 11. But how many other teams in MLS can you honestly say, yeah, their starting 11 is better than the Union's? I mean, we've seen the consistency from the Union so many years. The consistency of this team just to grind out results and find a way. And I believe in the starting 11, absolutely. But it's players on the bench I don't. And I think you guys feel the same way too. And it matters more than ever if you're going to continue to concede first. If you're going to be trailing, go and invest in players to make a difference off the bench. What are you going to do when Daniel Gazog's away? Because he's at the Euros with Hungary. Yes, congratulations. The Union have signed David Vasquez to a homegrown contract until 2027 with an option for the 2028 season. Congrats. But is that really the game changer? He's 17 years old. I don't think he's going to make a huge difference, and I would happily eat my words. But I don't see it. That's a lot of pressure on a 17-year-old to say, hey, look, we don't have a game changer. You got to be that game changer for us. And it sure as hell is not going to be Kevin Sullivan at 14 years old. It's not. It's not, people. They've got to go out here and get an experienced striker. Ideally, somebody that, doesn't have to be European. It can be somebody in South America. It can be anywhere. Just get a striker in here that has first team experience. Get an attacking midfielder that has first team experience. That is going to push Daniel Gazog to be better. Get a striker that's going to push Mikel Ua, Julian Kranza to be better. Where Jim Curtin can look down his bench and say, hey, look, you knew when Elsinho was here, you knew the first sub was always going to be Elsinho. And then when it was Corey Burke, you knew it was going to be Corey Burke. And now the first sub seems like it's always Bedoya. No shots at Bedoya. But it's a little different when you look at Seattle bringing off Ruzinak and the Union are bringing on Bedoya. It's a little different. A little bit different caliber player there. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Union do in the summertime. Will they bring in new players? Because I think they absolutely do need attacking players to make a difference if you're going to continue to concede. And even if you're not conceding first. I mean, not to use MLS Cup as an example again, but bringing on Matt Real, Chris Donovan for that game. Don't you feel a lot more confident if the Union can bring on a well-established player and not a homegrown player that hasn't seen much action the last few years? A striker that's in his first MLS season. Wouldn't you feel a lot confident if it's an established player already? I would. We talked about Tai Baribo, and I'll try not to spend too much time on him. And honestly, guys, I thought this was going to be a 30-minute episode, and we're definitely way past that. But you guys know me by now. Tai Baribo not included in the second lineup after he was initially in it. And I'll go ahead and play Jim Curtin's soundbite right away to explain that whole situation.
Yeah, look, again, I want to win, guys, and you know that. And it's hard to become a starter for this group. It really is. Ty's worked hard. He's been professional, but we've chosen to go with other guys. And it's not personal. I don't have agendas against people. So, again, I know as soon as it happened tonight, could we have picked somebody else and it would maybe have just been less of a hot button issue? For sure. But, again, going into a game, we wanted to start Julian for sure. So someone was going out because we wanted to put our best guys against a good Seattle team. Unfortunately, the decision goes against him. Right now, Chris is ahead of him. So that's kind of really the easiest way I can answer it. So, again, it's not personal. He's going to continue to be a pro, work hard. Everyone's voice grows, though, when we don't win, and that's a reality that I'll have to deal with. I understand that and respect it.
And the most telling thing from that soundbite right there is Jim finally admitted, put it on paper. We could all tell that Chris Donovan was higher on the depth chart than Tai Baribo. But now Jim Curtin has said it publicly. You spend $1.5 million to bring Tai Baribo here. Pay him $710,000. $710,000 a season. To not even make the second bench, where I guess he did technically, and he's the one that got substituted out, whatever. You don't play him, hasn't played at all this season. And you're paying him $710,000 for a team that doesn't spend a lot of money. That's a lot of money right there to pay a guy to sit on the bench. I just don't understand. And no shots fired at Chris Donovan. I know exactly that's what this is, but a guy that was signed off of Columbus Crew 2 because they released him. He impresses with Union 2, and so you give him a first team deal. That guy that spent his time playing for Drexel, not a huge soccer school whatsoever, he beats out. He's higher up the depth chart than a striker that you paid $1.5 million for. Wow. And you hear Jim say, yeah, you know, Tai is a professional, but this dude had 37 goals and 73 appearances for Wolfsburger in the Austrian Bundesliga. The season he left to come to the Union, he had 16 goals and 32 appearances. A player that has experience scoring in Europe, scoring a goal every other game his last season in Austria. The guy's worse off than Chris Donovan? I know some of you guys are going to say, yeah, nah, Jim definitely has an agenda against players, but it's just so mind-numbing to me that a guy you pay all this money for, what a waste. Almost as bad as getting Jose Riasco. Wonder what he's doing. I don't even know. I just thought about that. The Union spent over $1 million for him as well, and they loan him out to Uruguay. Does that sound right? Believe he got loaned out to a team in Uruguay. I don't know, man. Union really haven't hit the nail on the head when it comes to strikers. And you guys would argue Mikal Uwer too, I'm sure. So let's think about this right here, actually. Jose Riasco, a dud. Tai Baribo, a dud. Mikal Uwer, I think he's been decent. He's not been a $3 million DP, no. But I think, you know, he's on the verge of scoring 3 straight seasons of 10-plus goals. There's no reason why he won't score 10-plus goals again this season. Julian Kranza, yeah, you trade for him, but, you know, it's not like you signed him right out of Argentina. Sergio Santos, I think, was the next striker after Mikal Uwer. Sergio wasn't great, had his moments. I respected his game for his running. Kasper Schmeichel, you guys hate it on Kasper a lot. Not all of you, some of you guys. Had a good first season with the Union. So is that all the strikers that the Union have signed under Ernst Tanner? I think so. Marcus Anderson, sure, you can count him, but I don't know. He's so young. Who knows what's going to come of him? Wow, I think that is it. Did I miss anybody that Ernst Tanner has brought in that's a striker to this club? It's not great. Ugh. Not great, that list I just named off the top of my head. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but not good at all. Not good at all. So I guess the last thing that we can talk about is Jose Martinez tweeted at halftime, get substituted. And so his tweet at halftime, shout out to Jose Nunez for translating this with everybody adding him on social media saying, what did Jose just tweet out? It translates as, if the guys from your home/at home doesn't F you over, the guy who is visiting F's you over. Hashtag everyone is a shithead. I don't know. I have no clue what to make of that tweet. Jim Curtin, when asked about it, said, yeah, I wasn't even aware that Jose sent out a tweet. We'll see what Jim's reaction is. Will he suspend Jose Martinez? Will he play against DC United this Saturday? Who knows what the tweet's in reference to, but it was an odd thing to tweet out. And then you have Andre Blake, Tuesday morning, tweeting out, when you are no longer happy, it's time. And that can mean a million things for sure, but isn't it weird that he posts that on Instagram the day after Jose Martinez has his post on Instagram, And Jose Martinez actually went through the trouble of putting that on Twitter as well, a platform that he doesn't use that much at all. So it's not a great look. And yeah, this tweet or this post, Instagram post, can be a million things from Andre Blake, who knows exactly what it means. But soccer players love their cryptic messaging, don't they? They love it. But there's a clip I'm going to replay for you guys to refresh your memory. And shout out to Jose Nunez again for supplying me with this clip. But you had Andre Blake being asked after the Pachuca game that tied 0-0 at home. He was asked, do you feel like the union did enough to bring players in the offseason? And this was Andre's response.
I don't want to get in any trouble, but time will tell. I'll just say time will tell.
Yeah, and so maybe this post is just Andre being fed up with ownership not investing. And I don't have to, go and repeat myself about what the team should or shouldn't do. But you feel sorry for these guys, like I said. You really do. So close to winning MLS Cup. You feel like they have one of the best 11s in the league, but they're just missing that little investment. Andre Blake is in his final year of his contract. He is an option for the 2025 season. Last season, Andre was the third highest paid goalkeeper in the league, making $894,000 behind Galese and Berkey of St. Louis. Both of those guys made over $1 million last season. With how many points Andre saved for this club over the years, you do feel like Andre should be making over $1 million. At least I do. I mean, this dude's just so valuable, and you're definitely getting good value for your money. Absolutely, 100%. But I'm not going to speculate what Andre or Jose Martinez mean by their messages on social media. Who knows? It's just a weird thing, weird coincidence. You lose 2 straight games, and now you have 2 cryptic social media posts. Don't know what they mean. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Like I said a couple times this episode, I'm really going to be concerned if this team loses Saturday down in DC. Would it shock me if they lose? No, absolutely not. But let's go ahead and quickly talk about 3 stars on the night. Number 3, Quinn Sullivan, 1 assist, 2 chances created. Had a good game against Real Salt Lake. Had a good game against Seattle here. Got the assist on Daniel Gazag's 57th goal for the club. I believe he's the one who crossed it in for Gazag for what would have been his second goal of the night, but it was ruled off for offsides. Good performance by Quinn going at players 1v1, just a lot of space on the right-hand side. And we actually saw Quinn and Jesus Bueno switch left to right a couple of times on the night just because Quinn at moments wasn't really getting space on the right-hand side, and so switched sides over to the left. And I have no problem with that whatsoever if you're switching your 8s. I know we saw it last year between Jack, Jose Martinez, and Jesus Bueno. I think that's a good little tactical flex to mess with teams, throw things off. If one guy's not getting something going on one side, see if he has better luck on the other. So Quinn Sullivan, star number 3 on the night. Number 2, Jack McGlynn, 1 goal, 37 out of 42 passes completed, 1 chance created, 1 out of 3 tackles won, 3 ball recoveries, 3 out of 5 ground duels won. A couple things I'll say on Jack here. Great goal, fantastic goal that he scored. Always creating chances. I don't count him as a game changer off the bench because it's clear as day that he is a starter in this lineup. But again, he didn't start in the initial starting 11 against Seattle, so that's why he was on the bench. But instant impact once he came off the bench with a goal, creating a chance. Really good passes by Jack McGlynn on the night. And I do think he's got so much better too defensively. And credit to where credit's due, his biggest knock was, I don't know if he can do it defensively. He's not up to what Leon does defensively. Well, we're starting to see a complete number 8 now in Jack McGlynn, both offensively and now defensively. A really good night by Jack McGlynn. And then number 1, Daniel Gazag, 1 goal, 5 in his last 6, like I repeated. 29 out of 34 passes completed, 10 ball recoveries, 6 out of 10 ground duels won. Daniel Gazag, the player that's probably in the best form right now for the Union. 5 goals in your last 6. It's really, really good. And we're just seeing some really good runs. Good runs by Mikhail Uhre to open up that space for Daniel Gazdag and Julian Kranza to run into. It's good time runs, late runs into the box by Daniel. He's linking up well with his teammates. He's averaging between 4 and 5 touches inside the 18-yard box the last couple games. And that's exactly where you want your number 10 to be. You want them to be in the dangerous areas. And Daniel Gazag's been playing really, really good as of late. And hopefully that continues because, everybody's complaining about him being a penalty merchant, but, he's scoring goals from open play this season. I don't think he has a single goal from the penalty spot this season. Somebody correct me on it. If he does, it's just like 1. But yeah, Daniel Gazag's been really, really good for this team, and hopefully it continues. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And what else am I forgetting to plug? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, excited to go down to DC this Saturday with Jillian and Kyle Omni. Sky Hoffner's coming down with us, and yeah, hopefully we don't run into any mishaps like I had last season. Hopefully no stressors, hopefully can get approved for media credentials right away the first time and not have to go through 1,000 different hoops. Hopefully nobody that's traveling down with me goes through what I had to go through last year. In the end of the day, it all got corrected. And because of that, respect DC United. Respect. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.